Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host, Maqbool, with you at PTV World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a closer look at what is happening with reference to different political parties in light of the upcoming general elections, with a particular focus on the issue of election manifestos. This is, of course, something that, unfortunately, this time around, we haven't really seen in full spirit coming in from various political parties. In fact, so far, proper manifestos have only been received from certain parties, and they don't include the major ones. We have a 10-point agenda from the PPP, and the PML N's manifesto is expected to be released on the 27th, which is Saturday. There are a lot of reports citing what sort of areas and aspects have been covered in the manifesto. Even the PML N leaders have said that they have taken a lot of work and effort that has been put into this particular manifesto, and that nobody is going to be disappointed by it. And they're going to be ridding Pakistan of all evils and every problem that the constitution or the parliament has faced. And so the manifesto is reportedly going to be taking a look at a number of constitutional amendments that are going to be part of the manifesto, including the removal of a caretaker setup and the removal of the president from the parliament. And these are just a few changes that have been mentioned as part of the manifesto. What exactly is going to be part of the agenda and what is hoped to be achieved from this is also something that we're going to be focusing on. At the same time, constitutional amendments, of course, require a lot of support and cooperation from the entire parliament, and different political parties will be needed for the PML N to even succeed if this is eventually going to be part of their plan and if they are forming the government. There's also, of course, questions of jurisdictions of different institutions and what sort of role will be there in terms of both the judiciary and the parliament, something that we have seen come into clash previously as well, and has impacted a lot of major decisions that then influence the political leaders in their participation in the electoral process. And this is something that is not unfamiliar to the PML N in recent days as well. So we're going to take a closer look at what sort of reports that are coming out with regards to election manifestos, particularly that of the PML N, and then, of course, the preparations of different parties in light of the upcoming elections. With very less time left to the actual date, we still don't see the kind of enthusiasm that perhaps has been existing in the past elections and the kind of campaigns that are required. And tough questions need to be answered by the political leaders, particularly in terms of the challenges that the country faces, both on political, economic, security and foreign fronts. And this is going to be no easy ballgame for any party that is going to be forming the government. And then also, of course, whether or not anybody will be able to secure a two-thirds majority, which also seems bleak. So we're going to be taking a look at what will this be in terms of the new setup, and also in terms of whether or not parties will be able to put aside political vendetta in the greater interest of Pakistan and talk to each other to make sure that the kind of plans and action points that different parties are putting forward are in fact achievable. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi and Faisal. We've also been joined online by our guests who are going to be part of the debate, Mr. Irfan Ghauri, who's a political analyst, and we'll also be joined later by Ramesh Singh, Arora Sabu's leader, PML N. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being part of the show. Irfan Sab, let me start with you in terms of what is going on and the kind of absence of manifestos that we have seen in this particular election. The major political parties still haven't really put out manifestos in a form that perhaps has been there in the past and is required. I want you to please comment on this particular lack of the need of a manifesto that is also showing up, whether or not there is enough demand for that to exist, whether or not it needs to be a responsibility duly filled by the political parties, and also with particular focus on the PML N and the kind of reports that are coming in regarding their manifesto.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think, as you have mentioned, that the many of the mainstream parties, they have already launched their manifestos, but we are still waiting for PMLN, the main contender in next month's elections. What they have been saying is that, this is their announcement that on 27th they would be launching their manifesto, and they have made a committee which is which has experts and which has the technocrats and all the relevant people there. And what we have been hearing and what we have seen in media reports, though they are from anonymous sources, in today's the news, there is a story that manifesto that would be focused on major reforms, and those reforms are not only the reforms that are, in administrative and legal, but some constitutional matters as well. But till that manifesto comes, becomes public, we would have to see what it is. But what I mean, the other parties that the manifestos we had seen, like major the People's Party, uh, Jamaat-e-Islami, or I mean the smaller parties like Tehreek-e-Labbaik, their manifestos. But I mean, this is as usual the manifestos that they have. There is nothing much which is practically, you can say, that is possible. It
Wait,
is
with the
the
People's
same
Party,
like we
right?
had been
So
seeing in the past.
you're referring to the 10-point agenda that they have put out. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm talking about People's Party's manifesto. Then even MQM has a manifesto, which is to an extent that has
Can
some.
that be categorized? Can that be categorized as a manifesto?
Sorry.
Can that be categorized as a manifesto, the 10-point agenda that the PPP has put out?
But they are portraying it as their manifesto. I mean,
And
this
that's
is the
acceptable?
major points that they have, or the major program they have. But the thing is that those points which they have mentioned. I mean, we have seen that the party is in government in Sindh for the last 15 years, and most of the points that they have mentioned, they are the ones that they could have implemented over there in the province. Similarly, the points that are related to the federal government, the center, they are the ones related to the economy. And I don't think the promises they have been making on economy, like the subsidies, the free electricity of 300 units electricity to the consumers, that is not
But Irfan
that
Saab,
doesn't seem possible.
those promises are not just being made by the PPP. Others have also brought in their own figures of electricity units.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, and that is in a situation where we know that I mean it won't be possible in the in a situation where we have the economy which cannot sustain any such subsidies in any sector.
Right. And Irfan Saab, with reference to the 10-point agenda, I just want to clarify one thing. You were saying that they're claiming it as their manifesto. I want to know whether or not that's acceptable. Does that mean that just because a party is given a 10-point agenda, they don't have to give the manifesto now?
Actually, in our case, what I mean, mostly the politics in our country, unfortunately, we don't focus on those things which should have mattered. Rather, it is I mean, it is the mudslinging or the allegations or those things that that becomes part of our election campaigns. Uh, uh, but in developed democracies, it's the manifestos, the programs on which the debates take place, and the voters, they judge the parties on the basis of those. But in our case, I think this is the thing. I don't know. I mean, of those voters, I don't know. I mean, maybe just 1% would have seen the manifesto of the party that they intend to vote for.
Right. Right. Let us also welcome in the debate Mr. Ramesh Singh Arora, who's joined us, leader PML N. Thank you very much, Ramesh Saab, for being part of the discussion. And let me first start with a question that perhaps has been asked to you multiple times by now, and surely has been asked of the party. Why did it take so long for the manifesto to get ready? Ramesh Saab, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, I can't hear you properly. I am in the Halka. I'm in my constituency. That's why I cannot hear you properly. So can you repeat the question again?
Absolutely, why not? It's a question that you might have heard previously as well. Why is it that the party took so long to get the manifesto ready?
Yeah, because as in most of the times we have been discussing that why the manifesto is delayed, and we all the time whenever you ask a question, the answer is same that we were busy. Initially, we were busy in interview process because there was a long queue of the participants, of the candidates who has applied for the PMLN ticket, and only PMLN is the party who did this. All the called everyone for the interview, and Mia Nawaz Sharif, the Qaid, the president, senior vice president, and all the senior leadership, they were in the interview process to interview the candidates.
But Singh Saab,
And then
surely creating a manifesto is a priority task.
Yeah, so majority of the members of the manifesto committee, they were busy in the interview process. Now I think this 27th is the date when we are going to advertise the manifesto. And if you see what is our manifesto, during the speech of Mian Nawaz Sharif on 21st October, we have majority of the things we have the Mian Sahib has discussed. It's the manifesto, but again, that was overarching manifesto or the things what we will be doing during our government. But the manifesto will be like in on 2027th is the date when we're going to announce our manifesto.
Right, and Ramesh Sahab, there are numerous reports coming in as to what is possibly going to be part of the manifesto, and a lot of these site insiders who have reportedly talked about different aspects of the manifesto, and a large number of that includes constitutional amendments that are targeting towards improvement of the country and the legislation.
Sorry,
and I want to understand.
I can't hear you properly because I am in an area where there is very low coverage because I am on the border. I'm in Zafarwal area. That's why I can't hear you properly. I don't know if you can hear me properly.
I can actually. I can hear you well.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry,
I don't know if this helps the situation, but I'm going to speak slowly so that you may understand, and I hope that you understand the question. My question is, reports coming in regarding the manifesto and its aspects include constitutional amendments that the party wants to proceed with, not limiting to and including the removal of the president from the parliament, for example. Is this true? Unfortunately, we have lost Ramesh Saab, but Irfan Saab, I'll come back to you, and you might have also read those reports, and you understand what sort of reports have been coming in with regards to PML N's manifesto and the need for constitutional amendments. And while there may be a lot of that need existing in terms of what has happened in the recent past and previously as well, what do you think about this particular aspect, especially regarding the removal of the president from the parliament? Do you think that helps the country?
Sana, I mean, this is debatable, of course, but the thing is that this country needs serious reforms. And for the serious reforms, I mean, when I say serious reforms in your police system, reforms in your judicial system, in your general bureaucracy, providing services to the people. That is need of the hour. But unfortunately, that had been, in the past, there were like in the previous government of PTI, they made a committee and there was some report. That committee had come up with some report, but that was not implemented. Similarly, in the past, those attempts were made, but those attempts didn't become successful for one reason or the other. But when it comes to other issues, like we know that in economy we have lots of things to do, but if those parties they make any tall claims, those claims it will be very difficult for them to implement. But when it comes to those things that the parliament can really do, I think that is the time where they should put their heads together and do it. And if those reports are correct, I mean, I haven't seen in other parties' manifesto any such, things like, such reforms or such the issues which are the basis, I mean, how to address those things. So in that case, if PMLN comes up with something like that, and they have a plan to not only to bring those reforms, but also, to implement them, that would be something I think the people would be looking for. But other than that, I mean, as I have said, if you just say like we would be making these millions of houses, or we would be giving subsidies or free electricity, or we will decrease the prices of electricity, or the petrol on giving subsidies, that won't be implementable, because there are few things that are on the basis of ground reality that you can do, but there are certain limitations now, because now it is when we see in the situation of economy, it doesn't have such room. But in provinces, I tell you, there is lots of room, because the like education, health, those services are already provincial matters. And over there, if they want and they will, I mean, they have will, they can improve those things relatively easily.
also want to understand, irrespective of whatever the PMLN is going to put out in their manifesto or not, do we need these kind of structural reforms in the country in terms of the structure of the parliament and the role of the president?
Right, Sana, thank you very much for the question. I think that first of all, I wanted to comment on what Arora was saying when you asked him why did it take so much time for the party to come up with the manifesto. By the way, they haven't actually even now come up with a manifesto. We still are waiting for 27th, which is 2 days away. But he actually gave a very interesting answer, that is the party, all the parties with resources were dedicated to finalizing the list of candidates. So priority, of course, is attached to winning. Importance is attached to winning rather than where exactly do you want to lead the country. Right? And this has been the biggest problem in all our political parties. I've seen the reports where there are many aspects that are mentioned that these reforms are going to take place. But of all of them, the presidential part is one that is purely cosmetic. Okay. Because a president's office now after 18th Amendment is mostly ceremonial. By the way, it is the only office that I have actually found interesting throughout my life, and I have always thought that someday when I really grow old, I might find a way to there. But regarding presidency, the biggest problem is that all these indicators or efforts to just detach president's office from parliament, even though it was introduced perhaps in General Zia's time, but that doesn't mean anything substantial. Okay. Yes, something else could have happened, and that is the role of president as the commander-in-chief of the army. If you remember in 1973 Constitution, the HDO, Higher Defense Organization, was headed by the Prime Minister, not the President. So there can be a possibility that eventually they want to shift that role, but so far that hasn't actually come out. I have seen other promises also, like rationalizing powers of judiciary, then local governments or some kind of paper being produced, and then reforms in civil service as well. My humble submission is that when you talk about civil service, PML N came to power many a times. Every time S.N. Iqbal Sahab was tasked to come up with a paper on those reforms, they never materialized, they never even surfaced. That has been happening with that kind of reforms, so I'm not that much optimistic about these issues.
These reforms that you just mentioned, Farrukh, these are important in terms of them being cited as a solution or an answer to Pakistan's problems and to moving ahead. And like you mentioned earlier, that it wasn't done so before, and it wasn't something that the PMLN even achieved in their own tenure. So does that mean that this is something that essentially is unachievable in a way, or impractical given Pakistani politics for any party, because it requires parties to talk to each other, or it requires a lot of work and dedication to making that happen?
Right. I was really intrigued by this report because we haven't seen the manifesto. Yeah. We haven't seen many other reports regarding this issue either. What intrigued me was the fact that so much focus is being given on constitutional amendments rather than the executive functions. Because through executive function, Prime Minister is a chief executive of the country, and through executive function you can provide people some relief from the suffering that they have been going through because of inflation, because of economic matters. And to be honest, PML N is not known to be very brooding or very reflective when it comes to constitutional amendments. Most of what it actually started or initiated were amendments that were meant for consolidation of powers rather than any kind of reform. So that is not its forte. I don't know how they plan to actually manage to build consensus around it. Perhaps they are hoping that they are going to get 2/3 majority. But that, again, I want to be as rich as Elon Musk, but doesn't mean I am. You can wish that you get two-third majority, but come on, in this season, in this kind of circumstances, getting two-third majority, I think that is nearly impossible. So PMLN has never been able to, with the exception of last 16 months when it was in power, and though that was a very extraordinary setup. Apart from that, we haven't seen PMLN being able to carry its critics along to reform constitution.
Right.
I don't know whether something changes now, but we haven't seen any indication so far.
Right. Faisal, given the fact that a lot of what we're basing on, of course, is in terms of what reports are coming out, and we still have the manifesto to be seen. But if it is, in fact, focused a lot on constitutional amendments and not on the kind of problems that the public really wants to hear about in terms of what they're having to deal with, do you think that that's going to resonate with the people that that it is supposed to be targeting towards? Will the PMLN be able to garner that kind of support? They claim that this is going to be something that is going to be worth all this weight. Will it be true for the public as well? Are there answers for the public's problems there too?
Sana, that's a very interesting question. Of course, whenever you come up with the manifestos, of course, you hit them manifestos towards the voters. And if we look at this, I mean, voters right now, they won't be having anything to do with the, these sort of changes in the constitution or changes for, how ceremonial the presidential seat should be, and that position is already a ceremonial position in Pakistan, but taking it further, going towards the ceremonial in coming future, I think it has nothing to do with the people at large. People at large, as Farrukh has earlier rightly pointed out, that there are administrative issues, there are policies issues, and people are desperately looking for answers to their problems, and their problems are, of course, the inflation, and there are unemployment, energy crisis. If we talk about industrial hiccups, due to the industrial hiccups, I mean, largely if we talk about the industrial cities as Faisalabad or Sialkot, they are suffering, Gujranwala as well. So all of these cities, they are considered traditionally as strongholds of PMLN, and we know that they have always been considered as a party who actually is very good for the businessman. But right now, of course, the industrialists, they will be seeking answers as well. People at large, because if industries are not flourishing, then of course people at large won't be getting any jobs out there, and if they won't be getting any jobs, of course they are already facing problems. Energy crisis is there as well. There are so many problems for the farmers as well. The farmers, we are talking about Punjab, largest province in terms of population, traditionally considered a stronghold of PMLN, and PMLN always look towards Punjab when it wants to form a government in the center as well as in Punjab as well. So talking about Punjab, of course, Punjab is largely an agricultural province, and in agricultural province, of course, the farmers, they are seeking many questions to be answered, and so far whatever we've come to know about this manifesto, which is, as Farrukh has rightly pointed out, still 2 days to go, and still they are
two in the bush.
Two in the bush. And frankly, I've gone through the content which is surfacing around. It is a sort of a content which is intentionally sort of circled, maybe by PMLN itself. They just wanted to check the depth of the water. What do the people
You
think about
so? Just 2 days before the actual release.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Maybe they wanted to know what kind of mood people are in, and what kind of mood the analysts are in, especially the political analysts. They wanted to receive a sort of reception about it, and I think that is what maybe they are expecting, that people would start talking about. PMLN has gone back to its previous narratives, and that was of course, vote ko izzat do, honor the vote. And when we talk about the honor the vote, of course, in the whole content I've gone through, only thing I can sense and smell is that PMLN wants to strengthen democracy more and more by their own style, by their own will, and if they are coming to
vote ko izzat do is no longer a slogan.
No longer a slogan at all, but of course they are trying to portray that if we are bringing in the vote on the Constitution Avenue, we are going to make sure that the only building that gets the ultimate power is the Parliament itself, and the Parliament would be considered supreme, which already is in a democracy, parliamentary democracy like Pakistan. Of course, Parliament is supreme, and when we talk about a Prime Minister of the Parliament, I mean,
hang on. Parliament is supreme or Constitution is supreme?
Constitution is supreme, but I'm just talking about the administrative.
There are two supreme bodies then.
Yeah, administratively, I'm talking about, Farrukh, and you are rightly pointed out.
Constitution doesn't have anything to do with the administration.
So far, Farrukh, we could not get anything related to how they are going to fix the administrative problems which
the
are
economy basically, how to actually improve the lot of the people.
One thing is for sure, and which I am getting vibes from different corners. It is related to what is required by PMLN if it gets into power. One thing is for sure, there is no compromise on SIFC. SIFC must be realized that SIFC is the need of the hour, and the current policies which are being followed by the interim setup, PMLN has to give assurance related to that as well, that there won't be any hindrances or blockages in coming future.
Isn't that something that is true for all other parties as well?
It is for all of
PMLN?
the rest of the parties as well. But of course, when we talk about PMLN, I mean, we have.
Is there something about them that requires assurance?
It is about them, because we know that PMLN has a history of course, choosing their own ways in past. So of course, there are assurances which are to be required from them, and if granted, then of course we can see them here.
By the way, I know that you are going to go to Ghauri Sahab, but when you come back to me, I'm going to operationalize these possible that is a clash between PMLN and the establishment.
All right, great. Irfan Sahab, so far our discussion, of course, is focused on these reports, and a lot of will be seen, of course, on the 27th. But do you think that there is anything as part of what is being talked about by this particular report and by other political parties that you've mentioned as well, that helps the public in general, not in terms of big promises with regards to economy and the electricity subsidies, but in terms of actual system of governance? For example, the local government system to be strengthened. Do you think that at least is a step in the right direction?
See, I mean, when it comes to these political parties, I mean, all these, when I say all these, I mean, be it People's Party, be it PMLN, or even to some extent PTI, when it came to local governments, they had been in power, and during their tenures, the local government system that they introduced, those were the ones where, I mean, that didn't function actually, because those people, I mean, those who were elected on the basis of those local government elections and those local government systems, they didn't have any powers, and that had been the, I mean, that had been a dilemma of our, the main parties, that they always tried to keep the power, I mean, with MNAs and MPAs and, in centralized power, sort of say. So I don't see that if they come to power this time, and they would be coming up with something substantial as far as local government system is concerned. But smaller parties like MQM, we have seen that they have been, because that is how their politics, that is how their interests, that is in their interest actually. Similarly, Jamaat-e-Islami are those parties, but those are the parties which can press the government, whichever the government comes, is it a coalition or, but unless these major political parties, the bigger ones, they do not realize the need for the for the local proper, I mean, local government system, unless they I mean realize that that won't be the
But
case. And
right, but
that
Irfan sir,
is
what's going to make them realize why would they be willing to give away their powers?
that is, that is an interesting question, because that is how our politics, because you have seen that, I mean, be it this election or the previous elections, all the previous elections, they are not contested on the basis of any, any program. Rather, they are contested either, it's the, what we call it, the pragmatic approach of the people. Like, you go to the people and if how you assist them in your thana culture, how you assist them in kacharis and those things. So people are forced to vote for those people, because uh, the power dynamics in on the ground, because we talk about, all the reforms and everything, but when it comes to to the common man, and especially when I'm saying, not in, to in our rural areas, that is those electables, when why we they are strong, because they are the ones, through them you get that, the services, I mean, the patronage system that they have developed. So I don't think that, be it uh, PML N or People's Party or any other party, they would be very easily willing to agree on giving away, I mean, those powers to the local representatives.
Right. Yes, Farrukh, you wanted to add something with regards to the establishment in the PMLN.
Yeah, but before that, local government issue.
Right.
If you are expecting, any strengthening of local government from a set of parties that practically made them impossible when they were in power for 5 years, last time they were in power, then of course, मेरी सादगी देख मैं क्या चाहता हूँ, right? My simplicity, what am I asking for? But regarding establishment and PMLN, yesterday, if you remember, I was replying to something that was said day before yesterday regarding lack of leadership, and I pointed out that Mian Nawaz Sharif has a vision and has ability to get votes, and then also has the proven record of actually trying to translate that vision into reality. Now, one of those visions is India. And repeatedly we saw that when Vajpayee actually came on the bus to Lahore, and then we saw Modi when Modi actually came to Lahore. We repeatedly saw that Mian Nawaz Sharif wants to have some kind of normalization with India, right? But you have to then understand the India-Pakistan animus and Pakistan's history of fearing that India wants to gobble it up. And that again is interesting, because in the past perhaps the situation might have been different. Vajpayee actually came to Minar Pakistan, but this time in India, in India's new parliament, there is this map which shows Pakistan as a part of India, right? Akhand Bharat. With that kind of ambitions, it becomes a problem for Pakistani state to comprehend how to do how to normalize that relationship with India without getting some kind of assurance that India will not do similar kind of things again. Repeatedly challenge Pakistan's integrity, Pakistan's territorial sovereignty. And then there are two other aspects which are very interesting. That when Pakistan and India, theoretically, let us hope that one day that Pakistan achieves that. Immediately what happens? Then we start hearing voices of Pakistan that Pakistan no longer needs nuclear deterrence because now they are friends, and then Pakistan perhaps does not need that kind of conventional power as well. This has happened in the past as well, even during General Musharraf's time, when he had to reduce the number of Pakistan army as well. Now, if you are a soldier whose job it is to fight for your country, And then you see that there is normalization taking place between Pakistani leader who has a proven history of some kind of fight with the establishment, and then with the a country between that leader and India under a leadership that actually does not practically want to recognize Pakistan as an independent entity. What is he going to think? Right? These are the issues that actually can create a lot of problems down the lane. The second thing, SIFC. Remember CPEC? When CPEC came, there was again an issue of how to ensure that it gets security. And at that time, there was this emotional talk behind the curtains that a civilian government actually wants to have 100% ownership. But what do you do when you're fighting terrorism at the same time, and that becomes a problem? And then who is going to actually weigh in when you don't realize that in haste you are making purchases which are going to actually harm you in the long run? For example, CPEC has an infrastructure issue, but then the electricity aspect is quite intriguing because it seems that installed capacity charges was a serious concern that became a serious concern later on. So all these issues are going to actually create problems in the coming days, and the history and the public statements that keep on coming from PML N, they are not going to help. So today we might not actually see all those concerns because we seldom think about a day after tomorrow. But they are going to become a problem in coming days, and it is going to happen. It might happen after 3 years. It might happen after 2 years. It might happen tomorrow. But that is something that there has to be a dialogue, and a serious dialogue where you can actually assure the other side that we are not after you. We are not after, we are not interested in actively undermining the security of the country.
But is that dialogue possible?
Why not?
Because it has had to happen so far.
No, the dialogues actually take place, but the problem is Pakistan's politics is highly opportunistic. So when whenever that dialogue is in your favor, you acknowledge it. Okay. Whenever it is not, you start saying that you were kept out of the loop.
So most of the time that has been the case, that it hasn't really worked.
No, most of the times there has been a dialogue. I mean, repeatedly. There, for example, let me give you one very interesting example. Kargil, right? When Kargil took place, repeatedly we heard from PML N that they were not in the loop. And amazingly, then we saw Subramaniam reports from India. And their estimate, given that they were basing their assessments on intelligence sources as well, they said that when there is this saturation point in presentations. So the mention of Kargil came after that saturation point. So that's why the leader could not absorb what exactly was the gravity of the situation, right? Now, do you call it leaving out of the loop, or whether there was a presentation and somebody was taken into confidence? These are important questions, sir. And the fact is that both sides will have their own stories. But we do have a dialogue, and if the leader, any leader, if the ruler wants to be informed, there is no way that they can be hoodwinked.
Right. And Faisal, given the sensitivities of the situation, and of course in the way that we're going to move forward with whoever comes into power, then how is it then this alignment will be brought in first within our own different institutions and different political parties, and then of course in dealing with other countries, including India?
Including India. It's a very good question, of obviously related to Pakistan's, Pakistan's position for its foreign policy in the coming years. To me, I feel like, unless there is a huge change within India, people of India, they must realize that with having Modi as their leader, and that is being enforced and sort of helped by RSS as an ideology, I don't think that there will be any changes in Pakistan's foreign policy towards India, especially after abrogation of 370 and 35A. Pakistan considers that, of course, Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is the bone of contention between both of the countries. But if we look at today's India's stance is entirely different. It actually believes that as the world had started giving them too much importance related to their geopolitical positioning against China, at that time, of course, they started, doing what they shouldn't have done. I mean, unilateral decisions they have taken in that region. Of course, I'm talking about the Jammu and Kashmir.
Yeah.
The unilateral decisions they have taken, it has actually created an imbalance when it comes to resorting to dialogue. Pakistan
but
has.
Faisal, I'm glad that you're mentioning Kashmir and Jammu and the way Article 370, 35A was changed. But here's the question. There's a bigger question at stake here, particularly that map that we are talking about. Now, that shows an ambition of a greater Bharat where they are going to actually gobble up all the neighbors, right, including Pakistan. Do you see a possibility when normalization is such that India voluntarily removes that map from its parliament and actually stops talking about Akhand Bharat?
I don't see that taking place as long as Modi is in the office. And Farrukh, about this ideology that there is an Akhand Bharat and Mahabharat, this ideology actually, when I see these kind of things coming up, especially in shape of the maps and what kind of ambitions they have, suddenly it takes me to the Israeli ambitions as well. I mean, Zionists, they have a similar kind of ideology in which they consider that their area, their maps, it goes to, BCs, and since then, of course, whatever the map there was at that time, they want to revive that map. Same is the case with RSS. By the way, RSS is quite similar to Zionist ideology. It is Zionism of East. And of course, RSS has a similar ideology in which they claim that all of these lands, they belong to them, and once more they will be, overcoming that. And frankly, Sana, if we talk about, on these lines, of course, the Indians, they have a problem of a thought, and that thought tells them that everyone who is a Muslim in this region actually does not belong to this land. I mean,
they're foreigners.
They are foreigners, and I'm one of the examples. I mean, I belong to this land. Yeah. My bloodline belongs to this.
No, for you they have a different plan.
Yeah.
For you they have Ghar Wapsi. They are going to convert you back to India.
For me they have Ghar Wapsi. Yeah. I mean, this is a very naive and very stupid kind of thought they have in their minds.
And the problem is that this ideology, look, Ram Mandir, it took them 32 years to build a mandir, but they did build it there. Right?
Yeah, they did.
So whatever promises they make, they don't withdraw from them.
Yeah.
And that becomes an existential issue for Pakistan.
And exactly.
When you're going to actually try to normalize.
And I think the world powers, they need to look into this very seriously, because whenever we talk about this region, we talk about half of the population of the world, number one. And number two, there are three powers, military powers, who have nukes as well. So it is a ticking bomb, and I think the powers that matter, they must understand that they need to think about it.
Right, and Irfan Sahab, I'd like your perspective on that as well, but add to that also in terms of how exactly are the elections and who actually comes into power going to impact foreign policy decisions. There are, of course, different stakeholders that set the country's foreign policy, and we've had our stances very clear on a number of issues, including that of India. Does the fact that there is a different face at the top seat of the country affect that at all?
I think the panelists, they have very elaborately, the challenges they have pointed out, and we have to, admit that those challenges, we have to meet those challenges by putting our house in order. I mean, when we would have political uncertainty, when we will have political instability in this country, when we will have the institutions that would be that would be fighting with each other, on different matters, be it the political, parties, or the, establishment and the political parties, or the whichever, the people they come to power, that would not help us to address those challenges. And these are very serious challenges. Election is one thing. Yes, of course, this is something, someone has to win and someone has to come to power. But how they would address be those the issues that have been discussed here, I mean, the power issues, the, the inflation and all those, be it the reforms, be it the, your relationship with your neighbors, particularly with India. Similarly, we have challenge in Afghanistan, and then, with the rest of the world. So there is so many things, but for that it is important that all these stakeholders, they realize this, and they sit together. And like Pitafi Sahab was saying, that in the past, I mean, that had been, in case of PML N, what we have seen is that after some time they had some confrontational approach, and that resulted into their ouster. But this time, I think the challenges are, I mean, would be even more greater. But we hope that with the passage of time, they should have learned the lesson, and they should have that maturity to steer this country out of those problems.
Absolutely, and that of course is the hope. Thank you very much, Irfan, Ghauri sahab, for joining us and being part of the discussion. Thank you, Farrukh, and thank you, Faisal. We're going to, of course, being part of the debate, going to keep talking about the issues in the upcoming elections and what sort of different areas the different political parties are going to be focusing on. And of course, looking forward to the manifestos coming in as well. And we'll be here, of course, to talk more about that. But that's all we have from the show today. See you tomorrow.